Since we've had some absent, we're going to give them the reading assignment. That was nominated by those that was present. I had a motion and a second on the floor, and everybody approved.
Who made that motion?
The ones that was here.
You give me a name.
I can't give you a name. I know no names. See? See, that's why it's handy to say I don't know any names. Okay, now. But Ginger, since you wanted to know. Did you hear that? All right, Ginger, we're going to give you Exodus 34:28. And we're giving Courtney Mabe Deuteronomy 4:13. And then we'll give Teresa a Deuteronomy 10:4. See, we got all the girls. 10:4. Eastbound and down. I'm waiting to see if I had any others. Just bear with me to make sure I'm not missing one. We're going to hold that right there till we come back. All right. Now, what did we cover 2 weeks ago? I'm really going to stretch the memory strings real tight to ask you what you covered 2 weeks ago.
Pursuing God's will.
Pursuing God's will. Ginger is a mastermind. What else? We talked about pursuing God's will. What else did we talk about 2 weeks ago? Huh? Say that one more time, Ginger. Go ahead and chew. Somebody speak while Ginger's chewing, and then we'll come back to her. What did we cover 2 weeks ago? Anybody remember?
Translate that.
Yeah, we're working on it. We
Four
need
spirits.
Four spirits. Anything else?
Let go and let God.
Okay, we talked about the let go and let God analogy. Anything else we talked about? And to clarify, Ginger's not talking about 4 individual spirits. We were talking about 4 things that the Spirit does.
Yeah.
But her chocolate overload is incapacitating speech right now, so she was mixing a few words up just a little bit.
You knew when I talked about
I know, I'm with you. I know, it's all right. Okay, what did we talk about last Friday night?
we went to the center.
We did, but what did we cover last Friday night? What did we, huh? No, we didn't cover volleyball.
We did.
We had some good cheerleaders in the room, but we wasn't at volleyball. What did we cover last week? I gave them 3 words to take with them and study, and I gave them examples through the Bible. Does anybody remember what those were? I figured this one would be harder for you all because I figured you probably didn't write it down last Friday. So last Friday night we discussed gains through what? We talked about gains through something last Friday night, huh? Gains through losses. The more we lose for ourselves, in ourselves, the more that we gain room for the Lord to put something else in there that we need. If you noticed last Friday night, there was no hesitation or shyness or bashfulness when I asked them if they wanted to sing, was there?
No.
Hit the floor running. I've just got to decide who in this room is going to wear the crown. We've got to get some crowns for confidence in the room. I seen how good it worked over there. I think we're going to start doing it here on Sunday. Crowns for confidence. That's what we're going to call it. Which is really part of their program. Goes more into depth than what people think once they get to see a place and how it operates and stuff. Did anybody really know and expect to see what you saw last Friday night?
No.
Nothing like what you thought, was it? From just what they do there, the size of the building, and what they go through and how they do their process, it usually is an eye-opener for people that's never been to one or got to see one, especially not even knowing that that building is over there and what they do. Now remember, we dealt with only about 35 residents in that center last Friday night. They can hold 100. So imagine what it'd be like to go back and there be 100 in that building at the same time doing that. So a lot of stuff that they do and goes on when going. So tonight we're going down a different path. We've been studying things that every Christian should know. There's core things that every Christian should know. We're still driving down that path of some things that we're studying. But let me first take you to some of your favorite spot. We're going to go to the car lot. We're going to the car dealer. And when you get to the car dealer, tell me what some things you really dislike about going to an auto dealer. The entire process.
I do not.
Okay. What? Huh?
Pushy people.
Pushy people?
Yeah.
The overbearing salesman?
I was straight telling them, like, go away.
So, what else do you not like about the car buying process?
Payments, yeah.
Yeah, you give them money in payments. That's right. What else?
I just get back in my car and
Huh?
I just get back in my
You don't
car.
even buy nothing. You just leave. Well, that's a bad customer right there. What else do you not like about going to a car dealership and buying a new vehicle? Anything else you can think of? Huh? The waiting process. Anything else that you can think of?
Then knowing your personal information and everything.
They know your personal information. Then when they offer you the deal of agreeing to sell you the car, they try to offer you some other stuff.
Yeah.
We need to sell you what? Extended warranty, coverage plan, extended coverage, you know, free oil change for life as part of the lifetime warranty, all that stuff. We want to add on to that.
Here's $5.
Now, don't talk bad about the vehicles because Roger and Rick's in here and they built them. So don't talk bad about the vehicle. I'm just talking about going to the dealership to buy it, okay? And they've been retired long enough now that the fleet of vehicles they made's been done gone through the dealership. So, huh? Ain't none of them there, are they? Yeah. So we're good. We're safe.
You don't even have to go to the dealership, you can buy them online.
Yeah, they'll bring it to your house. Drive it right up and park it in your yard for you. So, when we buy a vehicle, now this is just, this thought came to me. We buy a vehicle, okay? And when you buy a vehicle, with it, you get this. This is what you get when you buy a vehicle. This is known as the what? The manual. Now, let's just talk the irony for just a moment that you get this manual. This is the Pinto, okay? The Pinto. But the manual you get with your vehicle. Tell me some examples of things that's in that book.
But people don't read.
I know, but just what's in the book, the manual.
Things that don't come on your car.
Okay. What else? Yeah, if you have this model, you have this button.
Yeah.
What else is what's in the manual? Think about that. You get a car and it comes with a manual. What's in the manual? It's obvious to me in this room right now that somebody hasn't read it because it's really quiet. But what's in that manual? Just think about that for a second.
Like suggested maintenance,
Okay.
Where the spark plugs are,
Okay.
fuse
how
location.
to change the oil.
Okay. What else?
How to operate the radio, set the clock.
Set the clock.
How to reset the keys.
Reset the keys. Okay. Did it work? It didn't work? Well, it wasn't good. So, just think about this, okay? You got this manual to this new car you bought. And when we flip over to page 7 tells you, huh?
That was in Spanish usually.
Yeah, well, page 7 tells us to not text and drive. Now that's just so ironic to me that they're putting in the manual to not text and drive. Don't put it in there. And don't put in the manual. Think about that. Now they're taking my freedom of speech away because in the manual they've put on page 7, don't text and drive. But then we go on to page about 15, and page 15 they tell you never to remove the coolant cap while the engine is running. But they never provide any explanation as to why you should not do that. And I did look at my manual. It doesn't say anything about why you should not do that. It does say to never remove the coolant cap while the engine is running. So they're just expecting you to take it based on a good faith effort that removing the cap off the radiator or the coolant tank is a bad idea. Because there's nothing in the book that tells me a reason or explanation as to why we shouldn't. Or, let me give you another one. What about the fact that a user's manual in a car tells you to always ride and drive with your seat back, this part of your seat, sitting upright? Why did they design a car with seats that will recline all the way down to then put in the manual to always ride and drive with your seat back upright?
I'll tell you that, ain't you, right quick.
Go ahead.
While you're away in the store, you can take a good long
You
nap.
can take a nap. Yes. But you're not driving at that point, or driving, so that's good. That's one, but they didn't put that in there. That wasn't even in the manual. Okay? So then they don't even I mean, you think about the things they put in there and they tell you not to do. Don't do this. Do not drive the car with the trunk lid open. Okay? That's in there. You're thinking in your mind, like if you think like I do, somebody's done this. They've had a lawsuit somewhere and this has had to be put in this book. That's where my mind usually goes. But it's so ironic to me that don't text and drive, don't take the coolant cap off the engine, and then don't set the seat back or lay it back when you're riding or driving. But nowhere in any of these random instructions do they tell you why. There is absolutely no explanation in the manual as to why that's not a good idea. So I decided that we have a world full of mythbusters that decided they needed to know why that the manual said do not remove the coolant cap while the engine is running. Now, they didn't make this book of instructions, think about it this way, they didn't make your book here, your car, they didn't make it to limit you of your enjoyment of having the vehicle, and they actually made it more for the fact of knowing what conditions that makes the car run the most efficiently. It tells you what type of oil to put in the vehicle. If you just go buy any oil on the shelf and pour it in the car, you're now taking the peril risk of tearing something up. Maybe, maybe not, just depends. But the manual specifically tells you what to do with that vehicle for the purpose of making you get the best performance, because everything in it lets us know if you do these and you keep up with the maintenance schedule and you rotate the tires and you change the oil, the vehicle is going to last longer and you're going to be safer going down the road with one that will run right than not to. Well, we get the same thing when we take the principles of the very Bible that you and I have. When you think about the fact that just like the manual to a car, our manufacturer that created us in his image then made a manual to go by to tell us just exactly how to run the best. And if you follow this schedule of things of what you should and should not do, you're prone to be very, very beneficial to do so, and even what to deal with when we start to sputter and spit and stop. Have anybody been in a vehicle that's done that? Roger says he has. Have you all been in one?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, recently.
Recently. So, here we got the sputter, the spitting, and the stopping. So, we go on to say that, and I want you to think about this, a lot of people have never thought about the fact of an answer of knowing how to get the most, and I want to use that word stressful, the most out of your life. This is the only book that tells you how to get the most out of your life. It was not written for God to follow. It was written for our well-being. And do you know of any other option that tells you the secret to living a blessed life? Is there any other instruction manual that will teach you the way of living, the secret to living a blessed life? So, the only way that we can enjoy life and the instruction manual is that we follow instructions. It's the only way. How many of us have tried to fix something on the car before we read the manual? Anybody? Raise your hand. You've done it. We've tried it. They've attempted multiple workarounds to see. Now, I will say this. Some have become YouTube certified. They've looked it up on YouTube to see what to do to fix it, and that may or may not have worked. But how many times have you tried to work on something or fix it before you ever touched the manual? I have seen people with electronics, dishwashers, all this stuff all the time, push every button on the panel, hold 3 or 4 down to see what happens. And the whole time the manual says unplug it for 30 seconds and plug it back up, and you're good. But they've tried 30 minutes of wasteful efforts because they didn't follow instructions. Well, if we're going back to basics tonight, we're talking about just simple basic things that everybody should know. I found it very interesting that the USA Today published a study that said 60% of the people cannot name 5 of the 10 commandments. 60% of people today cannot name 5 of the 10 commandments. And only 14% of people can tell you all 10 of them. Interestingly, a generation, how long is a generation? Anybody know how? Huh?
About 40 years?
Up to, usually 20 to 40 years is roughly a generation. But a generation ago, it was generally accepted that the 10 Commandments were the foundation of the nation's legal system. Posted in schools, the Supreme Court, and other government buildings. But yet now, 60% of people can't tell me 5 of the 10. And only 14% can even tell me all 10. Now these, let me make this very clear, these are fundamentals. These are baseline, fundamental instructions. These are like ground up building blocks to what we need to know. What do you think the reasons for why that in one generation of time, 20 to 40 years, why do you think in that one generation we went from having 10 commandments in the Supreme Court of Justice, government buildings, our schools, and other structures, why in one generation did we see them disappear? What do you think? Why did they disappear? They've been there for how long? Years, nearly 2,000 in those buildings. Why? In one little bitty speck of time out of 2,000, that a window of 20 to 30 years they can be taken away. What's the reason?
Break falling away.
Okay. You're close. If you had to put it in other terms, what would you say about why that those things have been removed?
Because of a few.
Huh?
Because of a few complaining.
Okay. Anything else? So, I'm going to give you this word. And this one word is how that it got done and what changed it so quickly. I thought that in 2000, okay, let's back up. I thought in 1998 you had freedom. Let's back up. I thought in 1985 you had freedom. Okay, for those of you who was alive in 1975, I thought you all had freedom. Those people singing Let Freedom Ring in 1960. But strangest thing was the 10 Commandments was hanging on the wall. Let freedom ring. And now, in one generation, they're gone. The first thing that this generation of oncoming people have become liberal enough that they want the freedom to believe and do anything they want to do. The collection of thou shalt nots is no longer to apply in today's world. Thou shalt nots do not apply in today's world. Would you like to know, if I asked you this, all right, let's just put you in a real scenario for a moment. You're talking to someone that's never been in church, knows nothing about church, very little, if anything, about the Bible, and they ask you to tell them in your own words what the Ten Commandments do and why that we should follow them. What the Ten Commandments do and why we should follow them. What would your answer be? Okay, the moral law of God. What do you think? Why? Tell me a reason why. You're talking to your third cousin that you've wanted to see in church all your life, and now he's sitting in front of you asking you some questions. And the very question he's got before you right now is, tell me what the purpose is in those and why we should follow them.
It's God's word.
Hmm?
It's God's word.
Okay. Yeah.
We want to go to heaven.
Huh?
We want to go to heaven.
Okay.
Don't want to go to hell.
Yeah. But wait a minute. Now he says, now wait a minute, you done saved. You done saved. So why do you need them now? Have you got to have them to keep your salvation?
We want to be pleasing.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Okay. Think about that for a moment. We're talking about 10 fundamental, basic moral principles written in the Bible, in the first part of the Bible. For us tonight, in this part of our learning some foundational knowledge, I want you to put this in your mind of what the Ten Commandments do for you. Everybody else included, but for you. This is a me thing, not an everybody else thing. So if I want to give you the best analogy of what the Ten Commandments right now does for everybody in this room, it represents one very familiar thing that you see every day if you're out going down the road. What does that do?
It's going to keep you from going off the road.
It keeps you on the path, preferably on the blacktop. It keeps you from veering off the road and going down the wrong way. Our lack of application of the commandments in our own lives is that is what is responsible for the deterioration of what we're seeing in the nations, the churches, people's homes, and in their own lives. If we have no basic moral code to follow, and we don't follow the most basic moral standards for ourselves and everybody else, then we no longer ask why that the nation, the churches, people's houses, and their personal lives have deteriorated. Because they have no guardrails to keep them in line on the road. If you wanted to give an answer to what the Ten Commandments are for and what they do, they're your guardrail. That's the starting of your guardrail to keep you in the path. Now, you think about something. Isaiah says this. We go back to this. We need to go back to the basics of morality and simple, clear answers about what it means to live, or what it takes even, to live and love in a world that has lost its way. Isaiah even said that unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. See, that's the freedom that your nation demands. The people that we live around and work around and shop around and eat around every day demand this right here in Isaiah 5:20. They want the freedom to believe what they want, make whatever decisions they want freely, with no thou shalt nots. No thou shalt nots. They want the freedom to be able to do that. And when we look at some references tonight, so I need some of my readers tonight. We want to look at some references. So, Ginger, you had what? Exodus 34:28.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, tell us what that is.
When he was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights, he did neither eat bread nor drink water. And he wrote up on the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 Commandments.
Okay. Who had Deuteronomy 4:13? Was that Courtney's? All right, tell us what it says before I say anything.
And he declared unto you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform, even 10 commandments, and he wrote them upon 2 tables of stone.
Okay, and then Teresa, you had, was it 10 and 4? Okay.
And he wrote on the tables according to the first writing, that the 10 commandments, which the Lord spake unto you in the mount out of the mist in the fire in the day of the assembly, and the Lord gave them unto me.
Okay. So this is the basics starting of the forming of the 10 commandments. We know that Moses brought the children of Egypt, or children of Israel, out of Egypt. And when they come out of that, and they come around the valley, they got to the foot of Mount Sinai. And when they got to the foot of Mount Sinai, what happened? Tell me the story. Moses to the mountain. And there is where he put the 10 commandments on stone tablet. If you notice, pay attention to something. If you notice, it's important to remember that God communicated the most basic rules to Moses at this time for living. But he did not produce them and give them to Moses in communication by only in writing. He gave them both audibly out of his own mouth and had them written down. 2 ways that the form of the commandments was instructed. God told him audibly what these basic rules for living were and put them in written form. Now, if you see this Hebrew phrase down here that means, broken down to the Greek, the Decalogos, that means 10 words. 10 words. It don't even go down to 10 lines like we know the 10 commandments to be. If we go back to the Greek and the Hebrew and go back to the interpretation of it, its definition means 10 words. The most basic principles of morality for living was put into 10 words. Now, if we study this just on a basic level, I'm going to give you some examples here for a moment. In Deuteronomy 5:29, it says, "Oh, that there were such an heart in them that they would fear me and keep all my commandments always, that it might be well with them and with their children forever." So here we see proof in 5:29 that God wrote this for nothing more than your benefit. This was to do nothing harmful to anybody. None of the 10 commandments was written for any of us to lose any amount of fun, joy, or blessings. Now, interestingly, we go on to see in 33, "You shall walk in all the ways which the Lord your God hath commanded you, that ye may live, and that it may be well with you, and that ye may prolong your days in the land which ye shall possess." Moses confirmed the blessing of obeying these 10 words, these 10 commandments. Israelites, this blessing meant a homeland that was marked with peace and justice and morality. If you follow these 10 commandments, you are promised a blessing of a land that you are that's going to have peace, justice, and morality. The same is available to us. The same 10 words, the foundational commandments, are structured for our own benefit today. If more people obeyed the commandments, we would see a remarkable change in people's lives and our community if they would just follow these 10 basic principles. So I'm going to start, and if you want to go back and study any of this at any point in time, you're welcome to, but I'm going to start with the very beginning of this part as we walk into this, and we're going to look at some reasons of why that this first one we're going to look at tonight is a very basic foundation of moral code is so important to us. First of all, it says, "And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage." And the first commandment given is, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." If we have one thing to do in this commandment, if there's one thing that we need to do and follow in this commandment, there is a simple word that came to my mind about what we should be practicing. Can anybody tell me what this word means? Huh? Okay. Okay. You're on the right track? What do you think? What's this word mean? Give me some type of thinking on this. Huh?
How you hold yourself.
Can be. That's one of them.
To lift up,
Huh?
to lift up somebody.
Can be. Yeah. Any other meanings you know about this word? Esteem. Esteem. If we break it down, and I'll give you the first, the definition. To prize or to set a high value on. To regard with reverence, respect, or friendship. When our minds are not biased, we always esteem the industrious, the generous, the brave, the virtuous, and the learned. The Greek and Hebrew language from the Bible lexicon says that the word in Greek is arak, meaning to arrange things and put them in order. The word esteem is tied to thou shalt have no other gods before me. And in the Greek Hebrew language, it links us back to the meaning of arranging things and putting them in order. Meaning that we are to put the Lord first. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. You might or may not know any of these people. I make no promises. But I'm going to ask a question about this picture. So, you know any of them people, Ginger?
I think I saw them.
Very possible.
Yeah,
Very possible.
they look familiar.
Look familiar. In, huh?
The one in black shirt.
Let's go back. When did y'all get married? How many years ago did y'all get married?
Eternity ago.
How long was that? Look at it. Boy, it's a struggle now. Why are you looking at Chris?
I'm waiting to see if he knows.
17.
Okay. So, 17 years ago.
Almost 18.
Almost 18. Let's just go back to that, all right? Almost when the Ten Commandments was still on the walls when Courtney and Chris got married. Let's go back to 17, 18 years ago. So, when you get married, what is in the vows that you make with the person you're marrying? That you won't kill them, okay? That is a commandment. That is a commandment, by the way.
Through sickness and through health.
All right. What else?
Health of others.
No. Sickness and health. What's in the vow?
To death, to war.
Yeah. Huh?
Obey.
Okay. What else?
Honoring God.
Okay. What else?
Rich or poor.
Rich or poor. What's the next two words? Sickness and health. What's the next ones? No, we got one more for that. That's the end. For better or for worse. We got for better or for worse. Sickness and health, rich or poor, death do us part. Well, the first commandment, thou shalt have no other gods before me, at its core is the love relationship between God and His people. And their requirement to esteem God and God only. Now you think about the fact that in a marriage, now just think about this. This is where our problems have started with a lot of people's marriage and relationships in America, and I see it a lot. When you esteem your spouse, you vow to love and to cherish in sickness and in health, rich or for poor. Teresa, don't put your fingers in yours. Better or for worse, for rich or for poor, whatever it may be. But you think about this. Now, when you do these vows, your job in that vow is to words would be to praise them for what they do, to bless them for what they do, to value them, to respect them to the utmost, to prize the spouse above all. Okay? To esteem your spouse, husband or wife, is to prize them above any other. How well does it go over when the husband shows up and shows up to the house and brings his other girlfriend to show or meet the wife? You see how this math don't work. Or the wife brings her boyfriend to meet the husband. Do you see how that picture just quickly goes horribly wrong in a vow? And in that same vow as in a marriage example, we get to being in our first commandment. Here's where we go back to that. So let's go back to Exodus 20 for a second. I am the Lord thy God. He says that because of who he actually is, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Because of what he has done, thou shalt have no other gods before me. God knew that the Israelites were about to enter into a land where many different gods were worshipped. And regardless of what all them other people are doing, he tells the Israelites, you are to worship me. God's laws is not given for his own benefit. He don't need them. Who needs the laws? Us. We need it. The first commandment is the fundamental motivation to obey all the others. And you're going to see that perfectly why that this one is number one. So here's one of the first pieces of this that we see. The shall haves. Okay. So in wedding vows you have to have and to hold. You have a car that nobody can drive without your permission because you own it. You have a home that nobody else has a right to enter in without an invitation. To have, God is to place him in exclusive position in your life. To live for him in faithful obedience and loyalty expressed in worship, service, and reverence, which the Bible says is the essence of wisdom. The problem with the children of Israel wasn't that they abandoned God. They added to him. They didn't abandon God. They added to him. Thus being, if you read the Old Testament, why that the Lord often referred to the children of Israel as an adulterous wife. Because they wanted to add to the relationship that they had with him. Same as what we see in the world today when these idiots, and I'll call them that, decide that they are going to bring their girlfriend to meet their wife. Explain that if you want to. But think, now this is real world. I'm giving you real world. This is right here. I watch this all the time, right here. This goes on all, don't it, Jim? All the time. All the time. Fundamental problem that he calls them and identifies the children of Israel as an adulterous wife because they brought more into the relationship and added to it than what they have. The shall haves, thou shalt have, as he said. When you think about that part of the vow, to have and to hold, that's nobody else's wife. That's nobody else's husband. You don't share them. That's not God's instituted means for that. It's the same institution for when you claim the Lord is your Lord of all lords, and there's one God. Same thing goes. You're to have nothing else but him. It's one and one only. So we see that in a lot of relationship problems today where there is no fundamental morality of anything that people follow. Then we get to the no other gods before me. Think about this. In Egypt, while they're in bondage, slaves in Egypt, there were 10 plagues that came upon that area. And I pulled this up. This was interesting in history that the Nile was the bloodstream of Osiris, god of life and death. But Osiris bled out when God turned the Nile into blood. They worshipped the frog goddess, Hequet, but the Lord made them sick of frogs when millions crawled out of the Nile, covering the streets, fields, and businesses and homes. The 9th plague of darkness, the Lord demonstrated his rule over the sun god Ra, whom Pharaoh was said to embody. Darkness was so thick that the Egyptians couldn't see each other or moved for 3 days. But in Goshen, where the Israelites were, there was light. During the 9th plague, it was so dark they couldn't even see each other, and they didn't move for 3 days. But yet in Goshen, where the children of Israel were, there was light. Israel's unfaithfulness had to do with the other gods they chose to esteem along with the Lord while they were slaves in Egypt. Did they not take part in some of Egypt's practices? Yes, they did. They did. The Lord knew this before he brought them out of bondage. So when we look at things God brings you out of your life of bondage. He brings you out of a bonded life of something you're tied to and can't get away from, or whatever the situation is. And God puts you in a place and sets you in a spot before He takes you where you're going and says, now listen, I know this is what's been going on before, and I've done proved it once. In 10 plagues in that place, I proved that there was no other God to pull this stunt. There ain't nobody else can do what I done. In these 10 plagues, now you're out of there. Now while you're out of there, it's time to cut her off. It is time that we end the relational issue of you wanting to add to our relationship. So when we get to other things, and you look at this, other reasons as we call, here's some. Israel lived 430 years in a land dominated by polytheism, meaning the worship of many gods. The gods of the Canaanites in the Promised Land were more appealing than the gods of Egypt. It even said that they were worship included gluttony and drunkenness. Roger is ready. If they got ribs and chicken, look at the temptation. The reality is that what was going on in Egypt with worshiping the frogs and the god of light and all these other things that was worshipped in Egypt, those wasn't near as fun as what they're getting ready to walk into when they get to the Promised Land, because the Canaanites worship some fun stuff. You could eat till you bust and get drunk. I mean, think about it. That's where you're headed to the Promised Land. Before they get there, God says, you're going to a place where there is many other gods, polytheism. You're going to a place where other things are worshipped are more appealing than what you just came from. You ever think of it this way? It's like people moving from here to the big city. And they get to the big city, and they got all the flashy lights, they got all the good restaurants, they got all the shopping malls, the Walmart's bigger, they don't wait in line, they got more store pickups wherever they want to go, they can order out, and DoorDash will bring it to them in 10 minutes because there's 5 different of the same restaurant within 20 blocks. I mean, just convenience is 10 times better. You don't have to worry about running out of water because the water and electric don't go out that much inside the city. Think about how much better things are. And the more those conveniences come and we like those things, the more it starts taking place of other things that we need to have before. So he says, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Foundation core commandment number 1. And the Bible even gives us a reference verse in 1 John chapter 2 when he said that for all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. Now these are easy examples of what gods we can put before us. We're not in the land of Canaan, and we're not in Egypt, but in the US of A, we sure have a lot of other gods that people worship. Let me say this, we got a lot of other gods that Christians worship. Let's just go that far. We can go even further and say there's a lot of other gods that all of us have been known to give into the relationship between us and the Lord. Because you shall have nothing else, no other gods before you. And you think about the fact that all these things that's in front of your eyes. Okay, you watch TV. How much saturation does your TV have on you? If you watch it an hour a day, 2 hours a day, 10 hours a day, everything you see you're taking in. And eventually, that habit of watching something, you get into a show. And over time, something you never would have watched before or approved of, now you're sitting there watching it. You see how easy things are placed in position in front of us and can become so easily in front of us. God is unique in some ways that we may or may not look at and see or realize. But I'll ask you a question. I've got a trivia question for you. So, can anybody tell me any of the lines of the song that Tigger sang on Winnie the Pooh? This is your spotlight. You should know this. I've forgot it, but anybody know any lines of the song that Tigger sang on Winnie the Pooh? Huh? You don't know none of them? Roger, I expect by next Friday that you have watched and learned this song.
Is it something about friends?
Huh? Do what?
Is it something about
Well,
They're friends.
he sings the song, and here's the lyrics. It says, "The wonderful thing about Tiggers is Tiggers are wonderful things. Their tops are made out of rubber, but their bottoms are made out of springs. They're bouncy, trouncy, flouncy, pouncy, fun, 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 fun. But the most wonderful thing about Tiggers is I'm the only one. I am the only one." See, only one God and the uniqueness of God doesn't just mean that there is none like Him. Let's correct that, because I've heard that said, there's none like Him. Well, that's true. But what you need to say is, there is none other than Him. You see the problem right there? When I say there's none like Him, you're saying there's others. They're just not like Him. But if I tell you that there is none other than Him, there's no other God. He is the only one God. Why should Israel... This is a question for you. Let me ask you this question. Tell me what you think. Why should Israel worship no other gods before God? That's what He told them to do. Why should they worship no other gods before Him?
Because He's a jealous God.
Okay, that's one good answer. He told them this commandment. The very first one is going to lead us into a very important part before we go into any others. But in this one thing right here we're looking at, why should they not worship any others before Him? Very simple. There is no other. See, when I look at it different and say, there is no other God. There is no other God to worship. There is nothing else to worship. Everything that I have put between me and God or in front of Him, between us, before Him, I position there, created a God. But the Bible says, and plainly, that there's only one. If you read the law or the law of love, and you read about the law, Moses was standing as to what the Bible says. There's only one mediator between God and man, and that is Jesus. And in the Old Testament law, it even represents Moses mediating for the people, and when he went up on the mountain and received the commandments and talked to God. There is no other God. When we say there is none like Him, that means there's others. But if I say there is no other than Him, there is no other God. Our perspective of things plays a huge role in what we learn. Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians 8, concerning the eating of those things that are offered in sacrifice unto idols, we know that an idol is nothing in the world, and that there is none other God but one. For though there be that are called gods, whether in heaven or in earth, as there be gods many, and lords many, but to us there is but one God, the Father, of whom are all things, and we in Him, and one Lord Jesus Christ, by whom are all things, and we by Him. See, idols have no existence. There is nothing to them. There is no other God other than our one God. And no matter how many times that these so-called gods are named and worshipped, they don't add nothing up, because it's just a story. There is no other God but one. When you say there's none like Him, you're back to referencing multiples, other than say there's none other than Him. Our perspective is very different in that look and what we see and what we study. So it brings us to a very formulated question of how. You think about that. How? And just examples of how do we do it. How do we have no other gods before Him? How do you answer that? Thou shalt have no other gods before me. How do we do it?
Pray and study the Word.
Okay? The Bible tells us in forms of what we call a relationship. You have to have a personal, that's what we call a personal relationship with Jesus. Do we not? That's what we say. You have to have a personal relationship with Jesus. Jesus says, I brought you out of that land that you once was in and that sinful life you lived and the hellhole you was walking through. I brought you out of every bit of that. And we're headed to better land. But before we get there, you're not to have anything before me. How do I do it? How do I do it? What do you think?
Walk with him.
Huh?
Walk with him.
Okay. What else?
Trust him.
Okay. What else? How do I do it?
Read the manual.
Read the manual. That's a good one. That's a real good one. Ginger was listening. What else? How do I do it? How do I have no other gods before him? Put nothing else in front of him. How do I do it?
Pay him first.
Hmm?
Pay him first.
You have to.
And
Yeah.
only.
Yeah. Our daily walk. You think about everything that you prioritize. I've got to do this. I've got to pay that bill tomorrow. I got to go get this stuff tomorrow. I got to go to the store. I'm running out of this stuff. And eventually, we become worshipers of the common man world. You think about that. How easy that we are turned. Okay, I'll give you an example. Money. I see people all the time, like, I'll give you an example at the hospital. All they have to do, and I've watched it and sat back like eating popcorn, they'll get up and say, if anybody can work tonight, we'll pay triple. It's like popcorn going off everywhere. Everybody's ready to work. But when they say, if anybody can fill a shift tonight, we've got one open, you don't hear a word. You don't hear a word. But then when they offer triple pay, you get paid one night for 3. Honey, they're ready. I mean, they're sparkling. They're so ready. But you see quickly how easy money became the root and held on to them because the mind's thinking, oh, I can buy this, I can pay this off, I can do this, we can go on another vacation, we can take another cruise, I can do all these things with that extra money. And quickly, we're consumed. We take ourselves into that. I'll give you one example, and I just put one example up there for us. In a relationship status of having nobody else but one, you complement various things in the relationship. You might compliment or praise your children for an accomplishment they do. You might praise friends for being loyal to you, but you praise them for these different things. However, amongst all of it, amongst everything in our lives, God should receive the highest praise. The highest praise should go straight to God, who drug us out of the land we were in and says, before you go, now think about, they're heading to a land that's just so wonderful, the promised land, but yet there is all these things when they get there that can self-destruct, worshiping all these other gods that they worship, getting drunk, eating till they bust. There was prostitutes in the temple, the Bible recorded. There was all these things went on. Now you think about in 2025, and this sounds bad, but it's the truth. If I took all the churches and took them to that land, what would we have?
Chaos.
Huh? What did you say, Sharon? Yeah. What would we have if we turned our Christian people today loose in that free promised land of all the gluttony and the drunkenness, the prostitutes in the temple, all this stuff? We turned them loose into that. What would we see out of our own Christian people in 2025?
Join in with them.
Huh?
Join in
You
with
wouldn't know them from anybody else. The blend is so good right now that you can't tell church people from anybody else. The blend is so good. They take away your 10 Commandments. They stop you from being able to pray at the ball game. They stop you from doing anything else. Do we say anything? Do we speak? No. No. And they went right along with it. Somebody got their word through and they went along with it. Freedom. I need the freedom to say and do what I want. And they took that foundational core number 1 away. There's only a room for one on the throne of your life. There's only room for one on the throne. It's a one-seater. This relationship occupies 2 seats, and you're in one of them. Who's sitting in the other? That's the question to ask yourself. Because God said you're not to have anything before Him. Anything before Him. You're not to have it. There's only a relationship involving 2 people You
Yep.
and one other. And in that relationship, somebody's got to be in the seat. What have we put there? What have we put in the chair to occupy that space that God is supposed to have, number one, the priority in all? It amazes me that the Bible is our book of things to tell us how to live a good life. Everybody believe that? I feel like Joel Osteen right now. This is the book that tells us how to be prosperous and marry and have all your blessings. Although Joel won't tell you that you're still going to live in a world of sin, you're still going to have problems, you're still going to face persecution, you're not immune from diseases and ailments and all these other things that the body can break down and have. But truly, honest to God, this book is your master plan. You will never find your purpose in life without it. You'll never get your purpose in life without this. So that tells me from ground zero, when he brought them out and is getting ready to set them in a new promised land, set them in a new land that they're going to, that 10 words, 10 core foundational words brought down into these commandments that he labeled was very, very, very structured and are going to prove a whole lot to us. And can you imagine if people just followed, just starting with this one tonight, if people just followed that right there, how much different their life would be, how much different the church would be, their community, their workplace, if they had nothing else before God in their way, occupying them, worshiping, taking as an idol, whatever you want to call it. What different life we would be in, and the people would, how they would be in today's society. Anybody else got anything to add tonight? Anybody?
Good lesson.
This is the scratch. This is the scratch. Courtney's Sunday school class is what age?
Maybe like 5.
And somewhere in there, in that stuff y'all use, it talks about the 10 Commandments. So babies to 5 years old, this started. The foundational learning of the 10 Commandments started in that first class. But 60% of our people today can't tell us 5 of the 10. 14% can't tell us all 10. Is all that can tell us the 10. We took it out of all the places it was at that held some type of standard moral code. And then we wonder how we're having so much trouble. Divorce rates right now are at an all-time high. Do you know how many people that just decide, instead of trying to work it out and make it work and fix things and do things like they should do, they just move on? They get a divorce and they just move on. The divorce rates are higher right now than the marriage certificates going out. There's more divorcing than marrying right now.
There's not many people that we went to school with that we've left but us.
That's not been divorced and remarried. Yeah. Guaranteed. And although biblically there are reasons why you can divorce, that's not the preceding moral code people are following. It's this: I'm done. Well, if we go back to the wedding, there was a vow. And back in that vow, you said what?
I will.
Till death do us part, which means you got to kill him. That's the only choice you got. That's the only choice you got. You got to kill him. You didn't hear that part? Is that what you're saying? Okay. So. Oh, okay. Gotcha. But you think about tonight. That vow that we make in anything with the Lord, a relationship, a marriage, anything like that, I don't think people in their mind even compensate to think what that means. Because there's an exit plan at the courthouse. And they think they can just pay it and go on. This vow they can just break and go on. But is there any breaking it off from God without God not being present and knowing about it? There is judgment for things that you place idols in front of him. And it's interesting to me, if you study the 10 plagues, he did that while they were there. And they were in Goshen. And he proved to Egypt all them things in that time frame. And he pulls them out of there until he sets up the standards of the 10 Commandments on their journey, on the way. he decides, or no, actually, he knows that where they're heading, there's temptations even greater than where they were slaves, and now they're going to be free. And we better get some things set up and straightened up before we get them over there, so that things start to make sense. Having no other gods before us is not just cutting off the idols and not having anything before us, but we got to go back to that relationship factor and build him up and put him up on top and make him on high. All through the exalting and exhortation and everything else the Bible talks about, exhorting and everything, our job is to lift him to the utmost, the highest. He deserves and is worthy of all praise, David said. And if putting him in that position eliminates us needing this other stuff that we add to it, we need to get him high up enough on that pedestal that he is number one in the relationship. There is nothing else involved but us and him. We got to get there before temptation takes us. Because even the Bible says that there is temptations very great, very good, very great temptations. Very great temptations. Although there is a way of escape made, it doesn't mean we always take it. That's the truth. We don't always take it. Human flesh. But in life, the first moral code foundation thing that we learn, 10 Commandments in that babies to 5-year-old class, the very first one that we learn is you're not to have any gods before me. You're not to have nothing in front of me. Nothing. One-on-one relationship. So that brings us back to the question of there's only room for one on the throne of your life. Who occupies it? Anybody else got anything tonight? Any